9 people died on a mountain the locals refused to name out loud. A tent cut open from the inside, crushed ribs with no bruising.
A woman missing her tongue. Radiation that was never explained.
And lights in the sky that 13 separate witnesses reported seeing on the exact night it happened. The Soviet government investigated for months. Then they sealed the file, closed the mountain for 3 years, and wrote down 2 words: compelling natural force. Today, we're opening that file. 4 theories, 4 explanations that almost fit, and the reasons every single one of them falls apart. Stay to the end, because the last theory is the one even the investigators who worked this case still haven't been able to rule out. Before we get into the theories, the infrasound, the military, and the one nobody wants to say out loud, if unsolved mysteries like this keep you up at night the way they do us, this is exactly the kind of case we dig into every week. Hit subscribe now, because what's coming in the next 10 minutes is the part of this story most documentaries won't touch. Now, the theories, and why every single one of them has a hole in it big enough to fall through. Theory 1. The Avalanche. This is the theory most widely accepted today, reinforced by a 2021 study using modern avalanche modeling. The idea, a slab avalanche, possibly small and delayed, struck the tent while the hikers slept, causing them to panic, cut their way out, and flee. It explains the crushed ribs. It explains the fear. It explains the mad dash into the trees, but it doesn't explain why the tent was still standing when found, undamaged by any major snowslide, with belongings inside completely undisturbed. It doesn't explain why experienced mountaineers, who chose that exact spot specifically because it seemed avalanche safe, would run a mile away rather than dig out equipment just steps from where they stood. And it doesn't explain the missing tongue, the radiation, or the lights in the sky. An avalanche can crush a ribcage. It can't erase an eye. Theory 2. Infrasound-induced panic. Some researchers point to a Kármán vortex, wind moving around the mountain's specific shape, generating infrasound, sound waves below human hearing, but not below human feeling. Infrasound has been documented to cause nausea, disorientation, and, critically, overwhelming irrational panic. It's a genuinely elegant theory. It could explain why 9 rational people fled a stable tent into a killing cold with no clear enemy. But infrasound doesn't crush a ribcage.
It doesn't remove a tongue.
And it doesn't explain glowing orange orbs reported by witnesses dozens of miles from the mountain on the exact same night. Theory 3. Military cover-up. This is the theory that refuses to die, and for good reason. 1959, remember, is peak Cold War. The Soviets were actively testing experimental weapons in remote regions just like this one. Some researchers believe the hikers stumbled into the blast radius of a parachute mine test, or were exposed to a weapon that explains the radioactive clothing and the unexplained internal trauma. It would explain the secrecy. It would explain the sealed files. It would explain a government desperate to close a case fast and never speak of it again. But there's no hard evidence, no wreckage, no debris, nothing physically recovered at the site to confirm a weapons test ever happened there.
Never speak of it
Just
again.
motive, opportunity, and a government with a well-documented habit of secrecy, which to some investigators is almost more chilling than actual proof would be. Theory 4. The unknown presence. And then there's the theory that even hardened investigators hesitate to say out loud. The Mansi people who named this mountain Dead Mountain did so generations before the Soviets arrived. After, according to their oral history, an earlier group of people vanished on the same slope under circumstances no one could ever explain. Some who've studied this case point to the direction of the footprints, not scattered in panic, but in moving in an organized line, as if the hikers were being herded, not fleeing blindly. They point to the cedar tree and ask what exactly two people were trying to see from 20 feet up in the dark. They point to Dubinina's missing tongue and ask why an animal. Predation theory would selectively remove that one piece of soft tissue and leave the rest of the body intact. One is claiming to know what was on that mountain. But 6 decades later, investigators still can't rule out that something out there was never meant to be found, and that on February the 1st, 1959, 9 people saw it. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case one more time. In 2020, they officially closed it again, settling, formally, on the Avalanche theory. But formal doesn't mean final. Not for the researchers who've spent decades on this case. Not for Yuri Yudin, the 10th member who missed the trip and spent the rest of his life trying to understand why he lived and his friends didn't. He carried that question until his own death in 2013, and by every account, he never fully answered it. Not for you watching this right now. Turning it over in your head, because here is the question nobody can close a file on. What exactly makes 9 capable, experienced people who knew that cold could kill them in under an hour, choose the cold anyway? What was worse than freezing to death in the dark?